The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your Commander-in-Chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. So I've been giving this a lot of thought over the last 2 days in particular. Let me make my stance abundantly clear. I've said this before. I'll say it again. I don't think the Commanders are going to get a damn thing for Brian Robinson Jr. That said, there is a lot of interest. I feel like teams are circling around the Commanders like vultures because they know all they've got to do is just wait. Now, the interesting thing is because I do not believe Brian Robinson Jr. is a vested veteran quite yet because he's only got 3 years of service. I think he does have to clear waivers. So all the team has to do is put in a waiver claim and he's theirs. Now, here's the other thing that you have to consider when talking about the waiver process. If you put in a waiver claim for a player, you then inherit their contract that they're currently under. There are a lot of teams that don't want to pay Brian Robinson Jr. $3 and some change million this season as a salary. So again, there's some different things that you have to take into consideration. My guess is if he gets released, there could be, and all it takes is one team to put in a waiver claim. It could be one team that says, no, I don't want to go through the process of, having to court or vet him to try to outbid other teams to see if he's going to choose me over three or 4 or 5 different options. I'll just put in the claim and he'll be mine, right? I think that there is going to be a team willing to pay him $3 million. However, my money is on him clearing waivers and then him choosing the destination of his choice. Now, that said, if you want to avoid all of that, the easiest way to do so is to just trade for him. Again, I don't see anyone forking over a draft pick, albeit a late third day pick, albeit a end of the draft pick. I don't see anybody forking over a 6th or 7th round selection for Brian Robinson Jr. I just don't see it happening. With that said, I do think there are some teams that are running back needy that should at least inquire about what it's going to take. Here are some teams that I think are very interesting that have piqued my interest in going through this process. So yesterday, I showed you a tweet from Ben Standy where he outlined 4 teams in particular. The first was the 49ers. They've got a rash of injuries at the running back position. They can't buy a break at the running back position. But I still contend that you're not just going to trade for Brian Robinson Jr. just because you need a back. He also has to fit what you do schematically. And I don't think Brian Robinson Jr. is made for outside zone, toss, sweeps, things to the perimeter, which the 49ers do better than anyone else. We all know what the Shanahan run blocking schemes consist of. One cut and go, much faster than slow, pressing the hole, having great vision, good feet, all the things that we complain about him not having here because our system requires a lot of those things as well. He's not going to fit into a Kyle Shanahan offense. I just don't see him being a great fit there. So despite all the injuries in San Francisco, I would take him off the list in San Francisco. Despite all of the injuries and the depth that they lack at the position, I think they are a team that doesn't really fit to me. Another team that he brought up, the Houston Texans, they are very interesting. Now, keep in mind, they signed Nick Chubb this offseason to go along with Joe Mixon, and they already had a Dameon Pierce. So, and Agumbawale, and they had a number of different backs in Houston. But Joe Mixon is on the NFI list right now with a foot injury. He has not practiced all summer. they don't know if he'll be ready for week 1 or not at this point. So that's something to keep an eye on. Also, in addition to that, Dameon Pierce, the third string running back on that roster, he's on the PUP list dealing with an injury. And so they don't know his status for week 1 either. So you look at the Texans, they're pretty banged up. Nick Chubb is coming off of, major knee surgery, the second or third time. How many times have we done this with Nick Chubb now? I think I'm not going to put 3 on him. I'm going to put 2 on him. 1 in college, 1 in the NFL, although it could have been 2 in the NFL, whatever the case may be. Can you really rely on Nick Chubb? Right? He is a full year and a half removed from the last surgery that he had. So maybe he is ready to really get after it and stay healthy, but you can't assume that Nick Chubb is going to stay healthy. You have to assume that you need reinforcements if he's going to be a guy that you're going to be relying on. So the Texans are interesting, and I do think they run an offensive scheme that could lend itself to Brian Robinson Jr. being effective. So that is a team to keep an eye on. I doubt that they're going to do anything because, again, you're going off of if you're the Texans, and they know their situation better than anyone else. If you feel like Joe Mixon's going to be ready in week 2 and you feel like Dameon Pierce is going to be ready sometime in the first month of the season, do you really need to go and trade for Brian Robinson Jr.? The answer is no. Now, if you don't know when Joe Mixon's foot is going to heal, and Joe Mixon's an older running back, right? So if you don't know if Joe Mixon's going to be healthy this season, if you can't count on Dameon Pierce with his injury situation and it may linger, then maybe Brian Robinson Jr. is a guy that makes a little bit of sense for you. I don't know if that's something the Texans would explore, but that is another team that you could throw in the mix and say, why not them? I've brought up Dallas multiple times. I thought Rio had the perfect way to sum up the Dallas situation. Dallas has a bunch of complimentary backs. Brian Robinson Jr. is probably another complimentary back. So you add a complimentary back to a room full of complimentary backs, and what do you truly have? I don't know the answer to that. Now, if you pair Brian Robinson Jr., which is a physical power back, with someone with the quickness and speed of the Texas running back that they went out and drafted, Jaden Blue, you may have something, right? They went out and got like every single back you could imagine this offseason, right? They got Miles Sanders. They went out and got Javonte Williams. Like, they drafted Jaden Blue. They got a bunch of guys, right? I think they drafted Phil Maffa from Clemson, if I'm not mistaken. Like, they got like 87 running backs, but none of them strikes fear in your heart necessarily. And I don't know if Brian Robinson Jr. makes a ton of sense for them either. If they don't love anything that they have, then he would make sense for them. But if you got Javonte Williams and he's playing, if he's working out for you, and I don't know what their situation is. I don't know how, well any of those backs have been doing this summer, if they're healthy, et cetera, et cetera. I just know it's a running back by committee type of situation in Dallas. It's a bunch of dudes, and none of them right now feel like an alpha in that room. Maybe Brian Robinson Jr. could be the answer. It just doesn't feel like that's necessarily the direction the Cowboys would ultimately want to go in, especially having to give up a draft pick to do so. Then you get into names that I think are really interesting. So those were the ones that are kind of like on the periphery, like, maybe that could be interesting, but I don't really necessarily feel like those are the best fits. Let's go to a team like Miami. Now, I kind of feel very similar with the Dolphins that I do the 49ers. Remember where their head coach, Mike McDaniel, came from. He is a Shanahan disciple. So a lot of his scheme, a lot of what he does features elements of that zone run blocking scheme. They like to get on the perimeter. That's why they've drafted so much speed over the years. But there's still an element of running in between the tackles, which they lack because they don't have a big thumping back. Now, I say that Jalen Wright just got injured. Don't know the severity of it. And let me say this, Commanders fans, pipe down. I saw too many Commanders fans in the comment section of one of the posts where Jalen Wright was injured, too giddy and excited. Like, oh shit, Birdman hand rub. Hey, calm down. Don't be excited because other teams' running backs are getting injured and dropping like flies, and you're thinking that's going to create a market for Brian Robinson Jr. Chill out, man. Relax. That's some real nasty, dirty, dick dastardly shit to be doing. We don't want any of that bad karma. All right. So don't do that shit. We don't want any of that shit. We don't want to draw any attention to ourselves and invite the injury reaper our way. So I need y'all to be very respectful of some of these teams' situations and, these injuries that are starting to crop up, and be mindful that if you don't want any of that bad juju, behave yourself. All right. That said, I feel like the Dolphins aren't a great fit for Brian Robinson Jr. for one reason and one reason only. They already drafted Brian Robinson Jr., but a better version, if you ask me, and Ollie Gordon this spring, rather. Like, you don't need a carbon copy of Brian Robinson Jr., just a little bit better, which is what Ollie Gordon is to me. He's a more natural runner, better feel. He's not faster than Brian Robinson, right? But to me, similar to what I've said about Chris Rodriguez is a more natural runner with the football in his hands. He's not a better athlete than B-Rob, but he's a more natural runner. He has a better feel for the position. Same thing with Ollie Gordon. He's not a better athlete than Brian Robinson Jr., but he's got a better feel for the position. You just drafted that guy. And despite losing, Jalen, the Tennessee back, despite losing him, and that sucks, and hopefully it's not a serious injury, you still have Devin Achane. You still got Ollie Gordon. Do you really, and we don't know the extent of his injury, but do you really want to double down on another Brian Robinson Jr.? Or another Ollie Gordon, I should say? You already have Ollie Gordon. Do you want to double down on another one of those? Like, that's not really what you need, if you ask me. I don't really feel like the Dolphins, if this is what they want, look, please come and get him. If this is what you want, shop's open. All right. But I just feel like you already got that guy on your roster. Do you really want to do that again? And to me, honestly speaking, this is where I'm really coming from. B-Rob, you should not be in the B-Rob market. If you're a team that's looking to add a running back, you should not be in the Brian Robinson Jr. market unless you have serious Super Bowl aspirations. This is a one-year championship level roster add, right? This is not a team that could win 8 or 9 games this year, trading for a guy that's on the last year of his deal. If you were trading for a running back with 2 years left on his contract, 3 years left, then that makes sense, even if you weren't going to contend for anything. You're essentially getting a one-year rental here. You better be in a position to win something and win something now if you're going to trade for a running back. I don't give a shit what you're giving up. The Devon Vele trade between the Saints and the Broncos makes sense for the Saints because Devon Vele has 3 years left on a rookie contract. That's why they gave up what they gave up to get him. He flashed last year. He looks like a good young receiver, and he's got 3 years left on his rookie contract. So they feel really good about giving up the draft capital that they gave up. Mind you, they don't have a lot of talent. We talked about the Saints. They're a very void team, right? They're void of talent. So you get it. I don't see the Dolphins as a Super Bowl contender. That's just me. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think, again, that's a good fit for what you're trying to do. Now, again, I don't give a damn what you have going on. If you're willing to give me, give the Commanders a 7th round pick for him, please, by all means. Please. But I'm just saying what's in the best interest of teams that should be interested. You should be in a championship, window. You should be in Super Bowl mode if you're going to trade for a guy like Brian Robinson Jr. Which leads me, well, let me knock off one more team, because I think of all the teams, this one makes the most sense. And that's the Cleveland Browns. The Browns really don't have anyone at the running back position right now. They drafted Quinshad Junkins in the second round. He promptly got in trouble with the law, has since been absolved of any wrongdoing, right? Charges were dropped, but the damage was done. He is the only draft pick from the 2025 NFL draft. Of the 256 selections, he's the only one that has not signed his rookie contract yet. And by all accounts, there isn't a real resolution to that situation in sight. Now, again, deadline spur action. Now that his, legal situation is behind him, we'll see if the Browns come around realizing that they're in dire straits at the running back position and get something done with him. But right now, it seems like they are in a pretty tough spot with Quinshon Judkins. They don't have a really, exciting running back room. They've got Ford, and I think they have one more running back that doesn't really get you excited and move the needle. Let me check and see who the other running back that they have is. Dylan Sampson from Tennessee. So he's interesting, gives you a little bit of speed. Same thing with Jerome Ford. But they don't have a thumper. That's what Quinshon Judkins was supposed to be. Like, kind of do it all type of back, but really gives you that physical power that you were looking for. They lack that now. And so maybe Brian Robinson Jr. makes sense for them. But again, on a 1-year contract for a team that Joe Flacco starting week 1 for you. What is Brian Robinson Jr. going to really do for you with Joe Flacco, 40-year-old Joe Flacco starting week 1 for you? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Here are the two teams that make the most sense to me right now. The Kansas City Chiefs, right? You look at the Kansas City Chiefs, and they have Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt, Elijah Mitchell, and Bashard Smith. So they drafted Bashard Smith, but he's a converted wide receiver. He's still learning the running back position. I think he's going to be a really good football player when it's all said and done. But he's got a little seasoning to go, right? You got Isaiah Pacheco coming off of a down year, injury marred season. And then you got Kareem Hunt, who I'm like, how much longer can we get away with this Kareem Hunt shit? Right? How much longer? Like, if Pacheco goes down again, like he did last year, because Pacheco runs as hard as anyone in the NFL. He reminds me so much of Marion Barber with the way he runs. His style is so violent. I can't see him having a very long NFL career because he runs so physically. On every carry, he runs like it's his last carry. You love to watch it, but that takes a toll on your body. I don't know if he can make it through a season healthy or not, right? You don't want to be relying on Kareem Hunt again. Like, Kareem Hunt is done. Like, there is no gas left in that tank. All right. So if I'm the Chiefs, you could upgrade from a Kareem Hunt to a Brian Robinson Jr. That's how I would view that. You add Brian Robinson Jr., you get a guy that immediately comes in and gives you a physical presence in the run game behind Pacheco, who is also a physical presence. Like, sometimes we look at the Chiefs situation and it's like, what the? I remember last year they had a white dude running the rock. Like, he was like a fullback running the rock. Like, the first 3 weeks of the season, I'm like, what are y'all doing at running back right now? What is this shit? I can't get jiggy with this shit. This is how bad it is for the Chiefs right now. We cut Michael Wiley. They picked him up. I'm not saying he's going to make their roster because he's not, but that's the state of their running back position. So I'm just saying, he makes a lot of sense in Kansas City. That's a championship window. You're getting a 1-year rental. You test it out. If you like it, you can bring him back next year. Makes a lot of sense to me. And it's an upgrade over Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt is old as dirt. How old is Kareem Hunt any damn way? He's 30 years old. Like, I mean, and that's not a good 30. You know, that's not a good 30. There's a lot of tread off those tires. It's not a good 30 at all. He didn't have a step to lose, and he's already lost 2. So maybe the Chiefs say, I'd much rather deal with the devil I know than the devil I don't know. They know Kareem Hunt. He's been in their system for quite some time. This is his second stint with them. They may just be comfortable with what he brings to the table. But Brian Robinson Jr. would be an upgrade over Kareem Hunt at this point of his career. So that's one team. And for me, a dark horse team, and I don't think they're going to do it, right? I don't think they're interested. But to me, the Detroit Lions make the most sense of any team to me. All right. Maybe it's 1A, 1B with the Chiefs. But to me, the Detroit Lions are so intriguing because you got Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, and you don't really have anything after that. You got Craig Reynolds, Sione Vake. Like, these are uninspiring names. Deion Jackson, Jacob Saylor. Like, what are we doing here? Okay. We saw David Montgomery get injured last year, and we know, and again, I'm a big Jahmyr Gibbs fan, and I think he should have as many touches as you can give him in a game. When he touches the football, good things happen. But you also don't want to run him into the ground. And so you need a complimentary back to Jahmyr Gibbs, and David Montgomery is the perfect one. But what happens, like David Montgomery is one of these dudes that gets hurt every year. Every year. I don't know if David Montgomery has had a season where he's played in all 16 or 17 games. I don't know if that exists with him. He's good to miss at least 3 or 4 games every year. I think he missed more than that last season. So I just feel like you should have a guy. And again, Ben Standing made a great point on Rio's show earlier this morning. If you haven't checked it out, do yourself a favor, watch Rio in his interview with Ben Standing. It was a really good interview. And Ben talked about if a team trades for him, he probably has to be your number 1 or number 2 back because he doesn't play any special teams. That's one of the things that got him in trouble here in Washington, is that he doesn't play any special teams. There's no extra added value with a Brian Robinson Jr. If you can't get him on the field, then he's just taking up a roster spot because he's not running down on teams and making a tackle. He's just sitting there on the sideline collecting dust. So Ben Standing was like, if you're not bringing him in to be your number 1 and number 2 back and he's getting carries every single week, then it's just not an ideal situation for you to go out and acquire him. And that's the issue potentially with Detroit, is that if you've got a healthy Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, Brian Robinson Jr. is not getting any carries. And I get that. But I'm just looking at where the Lions are. They're a championship caliber team. They have high expectations and goals set for themselves. One injury to the running back position with David Montgomery could derail that. And instead of you having to then turn to a guy like Craig Reynolds or Sione Vake, you could turn to Brian Robinson Jr. and not have a drop-off there. So, and the beauty of that is they saw Brian Robinson Jr. up close and personal last year, and he gutted them. And a lot of times how teams base their decision-making when, going after a player is, what did he do against us? Did he kick our ass? Because they remember that. Teams remember when a player comes to their city or they go there and that player destroys them. They remember that. You'll hear that a lot of times when a guy is acquired in free agency and they ask why. Man, this guy had a hell of a game against us last year. Or, this guy's been a thorn in my side as a general manager for the last 4 years. And, the opportunity came for us to have an opportunity to get him, and I couldn't pass it by, You heard DQ talk about Debo and how I've been on the wrong side of that. You as a coach, the general manager, you see it. You understand what it is. And so B-Rob had a really good game against Detroit last year in the divisional round. So they know what he's capable of. They know his physicality. he plays Detroit Lions type football. I would really be interested to see if they had any intrigue in doing something. I don't think so. Right. I don't see the Lions as I just feel like it makes a lot of sense. When I talk about trades for teams, I always just try to make sure it makes sense. That one makes a lot of sense to me. But the thing that I've struggled with in this whole situation is the I think it's $3.2 million or whatever it is. When did that become a lot of money? If you're a team struggling with your cap situation, then I guess I get it. I guess that is a lot of money. But if you're not struggling with your cap situation, I don't understand why $3 million would be a deterrent to either signing him, trading for him, or putting in a waiver claim for him. I mean, for a starting caliber running back, a low end starting caliber running back, but a starting running back nonetheless, $3 million is a lot of money. I'm confused. That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, but I'm hearing that a lot. I mean, Ian Rappaport literally just talked about how and Ben Stannick even put in his tweet that I read to you guys yesterday, the over $3 million that Brian Robinson Jr. is slated to make this year is not for everyone, right? And Ian Rappaport's like, if the Commanders want to get a deal, they may have to eat some of his salary. And I'm like, the dude ain't making $8 million this year. Why I got to eat some of his salary? It doesn't. Again, I've already told you, if a team approached the Commanders and said, I give you a 7th round pick, but you got to eat, $1.7 million. You got to eat $2 million of his. Yeah, I'll do that for a 7th round pick. You essentially bought a 7th round pick for $2 million or $1.7 million. I would do that. I would do that. Move on from a guy that you're going to get nothing for if you just release him versus giving up a little bit of cap and still acquiring an asset. So it'll be interesting to see what the outcome of this is, because I think they want resolution with this situation sooner rather than later. I could see this getting done tomorrow, whether it's him being outright cut or traded. To me, it doesn't make sense if you're going to cut him to do it early. You have until Tuesday at 4 p.m. to kind of play this entire process out and see if someone will get desperate in the 23rd, 24th, 25th hour and say, yeah, no, let me get him, right? You're hoping that a team does with us what the Jaguars or the Texans did with the Jaguars, right? They were going to release Christian Kirk. Like it was literally this much time left. They were going to cut him. The word out on the street was that he was released. Remember, we did a video. We were excited. He was like, we going to get his ass. That's Cliff's boy. He's definitely coming to Washington. And then it was like, hold the phones on that. Just as the Jags were about to turn in Christian Kirk's release to the league, the Texans hit him on their line and was like, yo, let me get him. I got a late round pick for you. Hit him on the bat line. Got Christian Kirk in a Texans uniform before he could hit the open market. And I'm hoping that something like that arises for Brian Robinson Jr., but I'm not holding my breath. Again, the running back position is one that is severely undervalued. And I think, Rio put it, very eloquently when he said Joe Mixon was traded for like the 224th pick in the draft. And that's Joe Mixon. That's Joe Mixon. This is Brian Robinson Jr. So I just don't know how you get any compensation for a guy who hasn't rushed for more than 800 yards in his first 3 seasons in any given season. And a guy that has had an injury-riddled career to this point. And a guy that just has a limited ceiling, right? You kind of know what he is. Brian Robinson Jr. shows up in clear packaging. You know what you're going to get, which I had no issues with. Like, I don't want to make it seem like I'm railing on the guy, because you already know I was a Brian Robinson Jr. stan. Like, I'm not a fan of them doing this, but they got to do what they got to do. I really don't think they felt like they were going to have to do this. They were shopping him, actively looking to move him, but they were doing it quietly. And had it stayed quiet, and had he never found out about it, I don't think we're here. I think he's still on this roster. He still has a locker in the facility, and he's still practicing as the #1 running back on this team, and he would have played on Monday night. Instead, the news got out. It caused friction. He did not handle it well. They said, okay, we're going to get you out of here. Don't you worry. And they pretty much removed him from the equation because it got nasty. And again, he's human. I get it. So, any places you guys think that I didn't mention that he could end up, I just don't see a lot of places making a ton of sense for Brian Robinson Jr., given the fact that he's on the final year of his rookie deal, given that he's got limited upside. He has a role he can play in this league. He can carve out a niche for himself as a physical back, but that only gets you but so far. So I digress. Just wanted to throw that out there. I got another B-Rob video coming y'all way in a little bit. Whether it's today or tomorrow, we'll see. But I am going to be live tonight. Obviously, the Commanders had practice today. DQ spoke today. Terry, I know you guys seen the video already of Terry and Noah Brown with the wide receivers today as they broke the huddle at the end of practice. So it was good to see Terry and Noah both at practice today. They did not participate. So just so we're clear, neither of them participated, but they were both out on the sidelines watching, along with Sam Cosmi, 11-on-11 work as the team was highly competitive today because, again, this was supposed to be the joint practice day with the Baltimore Ravens, but the two teams elected to scrap that joint practice. So Commanders brought in officials. DQ talked about what kind of day it was at his press conference. We'll talk about all that and then some. The Commanders also made another signing today. We'll talk about that when we get to Training Camp Confidential. So, again, that signing was more for the game coming up on Saturday. They need bodies to get through that game. You're not putting any of your starters out there. So that was more of what that signing was about, and less of the George Fant variety where you're like, no, this dude is making the roster, in my estimation. So I digress. That's going to do it for me. Your man Louie T here on this installment of the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. At this point, you really just want resolution with this situation as well as the Terry McLaurin situation. You just want resolution. I think we're getting closer and closer to resolution with this situation because there's a hard deadline that is involved. With the Terry situation, the deadline doesn't really hit until you get to September 7th. So the week of that game is when he's probably got to hit the field and start practicing and all of that good stuff. But for B-Rob, you basically got a little under a week. You're basically looking at 5 days where they got to make a decision on what they're going to do with you. And I think he's going to end up getting cut. I know they want this over sooner rather than later. I know DQ's tired of answering questions about Brian Robinson Jr. I know he's tired of answering questions about Terry McLaurin. We saw that yesterday. We saw his frustration boil over a little bit yesterday with the "Where's Waldo" comment. So, again, we'll see what happens. But I digress. You guys get out of here. We'll be back later on tonight. There may be another video coming out today. There may not be. Check out the Bleacher Report quick hits. It's pretty much the same thing I just talked about, but in shorter, more condensed form. But in any event, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. Remember, if you want to donate to the Commanders Kings live event, let me go ahead and pull up the flyer I'm just being petty right now. I'm pulling up the flyer. Only because I can. And only because it says sold out, you know. Hell yeah, sold that bitch out. So the actual event itself is sold out. Shout out to everyone who's got their tickets and will be in attendance on Sunday, August 24th at Crystal City Sports Pub in Arlington, Virginia. For the rest of you who aren't going to be in attendance, you can still be a part of this show by donating. Simply head over to the link that is in the description of this video. And if you're a mod out there, do me a favor, drop that link in the comment section of this video so those that want to donate have an opportunity to do so. If that link is not in the comment section, it's already in the description. Just go in there, click that link. It'll take you to where you can scroll all the way down at the bottom of the screen, and you will find the donation tiers: bronze, silver, gold, and wild card. No donation is too big. No donation is too small. We thank you for all donations, and we're going to shout out everyone that donates to the Commanders Kings live event. It's such a big deal. We want you guys to be a part of it, and we can't thank you enough for your support. So with that said, you guys get out of here. I'll see you later on this evening. Have a good one. God bless. Peace.